Hi, everybody. It's the Philosophical Goob, and I wanted to bring up something about AI because it seems like it's being talked about more and more at the academic collegiate level. One of the classes that I help with at a college that will not be disclosed, we were talking about AI, and it's really strange because as much as it's being like shoved down our throats in like every facet of reality, it seems like the majority of people or individuals like don't like it or trust it. Um, Albeit I'm not sure that they are considering like cars and stuff like that as being hardcore AI, which I know they're integrating AI into cars too, which is really weird because why would you need that? At some point it's almost like a discussion of like, do we even need this? Especially if we're talking about like human prosperity. But I mean, pros and cons, right? But the way that it's being utilized right now, especially in like Waymo cars where you have like driverless cars, and you have it in all these facets that kind of are taking up not necessarily, I mean, authority positions, yes, but they're also taking up positions where you're kind of trusting it obviously with your life. And there's still so many bugs and things and problems with the system operations with AI that I am hesitant to step heavy-footed into a AI world. But that's what I was wondering is for society. If you look at the trolley car problem in philosophy that's utilized a lot, it's if you haven't heard this, I'll just say it really quick. If you have, bear with me. But it's basically a trolley car. It's on a path, a train track that has two railways. One, it's the one that it's barreling down now is going to hit five people that are tied to the tracks. But if you push the lever, it veers off to another track that only kills one person that's tied to the track. So the trolley car problem asks, which one would you rather have? If we're looking at Bentham's type of utilitarianistic argument that says the most amount of good for the most amount of people is the goal, then obviously you would veer off of the main track and you would go to the track that has one person tied to it. And if you were not utilitarian and maybe more of a Kantian, then you would say something along the lines of basically the function of a train, and also on the weight of like not wanting to commit murder or harm. So then you obviously wouldn't do anything, and you would end up hitting the five people. Or if you just like wanted to take yourself out of the situation and say I can't make that decision obviously because it has to do with death and killing someone, then you wouldn't do anything. But then it makes it more of, so basically with this trolley car problem, we're using that analogy, this thought experiment, to talk about driverless cars. So for driverless cars, the main challenger or whatever, to the main argument is that it would cut down on human error and how many people die due to negligence or accidents or violence with cars. So they would basically take that out by replacing it with a driverless car. And that's also a utilitarian argument when it comes to whether or not you might hit somebody. If there's like five people there, they do the same similar experiment where they say if there's ask strangers if there's five people there versus one person and you're going to hit somebody, who would you rather it be, kind of idea. And overwhelmingly so, when they weren't part of the predicament, they chose the utilitarian argument of having one person die instead of five, right? But then when you put them in the predicament, for example, let's say that you're the one person that would end up dying and you're the driver of the car, and then five people are like pedestrians, they overwhelmingly chose to save themselves. So we have this kind of weird dynamic where you either say you want to do the most good for the most people, but yet if you're the one that's going to end up taking the damage for being the one person sort of sacrificed in this scenario, then overwhelmingly like we tend to go, no, never mind, like hit the five people. So this whole idea bleeds over into cars, because what happens when you start doing these scenarios with the driverless cars where they have to pick who dies and who doesn't in a scenario? Because the experiment they were doing had to do with if a car kind of goes out of control and like can't stop, and it either has to hit pedestrians crossing the street or it has to crash into a building and sacrifice the driver, what would you do? So that's what the experiment was in analogy. So this leaves us with the question, where's AI's place in the world with us and with the way that we want to live? Because it seems that everywhere that AI tends to take a huge step or a huge dominance in its presence, it seems to not erase, but almost negate like the human experience and what it means to be human. Because in those both of those scenarios, you take out your active participation in something. Granted, like, you're not committing any atrocity if you were like the driver of the car, but at the same time, are you willing to allow an entity to decide whether or not you live or die based on the scenario that technically it put itself in? Because if you just said, I want to go to this location, it shows how to get there. So I mean, you're ultimately putting your life in a machine's hands. And do you trust a machine with your life? Obviously, it seems that the predominant amount of people say, no, I don't trust a machine with my life. So where does this leave us? I'm gonna continue this because I don't have that much of my memory left on this device. So I'll continue the conversation, but that's food for thought, and I want to hear what you think about it, because I would like to start a conversation about it, because it would be really interesting. What do you think the pros and cons are of driverless cars? Do you think we can get away with having a happy world where we could balance the two without it having so much weight in its authority of how we're using it and how we're because it seems like it's not totally an option to use AI anymore. It seems like it's mandatory by all these entities, whether it be school, whether it be work, whether it be a car that needs to talk to you for some reason with an AI. You should be driving. Why are you talking to a bot? But anyway, that's it for now. Thank you. See you soon. Always be excellent.